Good morning. Can I welcome you to what I think might be for many of us our last County Council meeting. So thank you very much for attending. Thanks very much for your time. We have apologies from the chairman, which is why you've got me sitting here. He was taken to hospital, nothing madly serious, but won't be here today. So on behalf of the committee, I'm sure we send him our very best wishes for a speedy recovery, and we see him back again in the county before very long. Do we have any other apologies? Joe?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I have received the following apologies. Councillors Mark Winnington, Jack Abrahams, Arshad Afzar, John Francis, Tom Loughborough-Rudd, and Jill Waring. Thank you, Chair.
Well, we wish them all well. The minutes of the last meeting have all been circulated. Do we agree them as a true and correct record of what took place? Phil?
Chair, I need to declare an interest. It's item 2.
In the minutes?
No.
I think you had some advice, didn't you, Phil?
What's the declaration?
It's just to say that the quarry is actually on my division. The work that wants to be done is on Uttoxeter Rural, so not my division, but I am a member of the Quarry Liaison Committee.
Okay. Well, that's just to be noted. It won't affect your speaking or voting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, you've read the minutes. Are they agreed as a true and correct record? Yes, moved and seconded. Thank you. What am I signing, Joe? These here?
Correct. Thank you. Yeah, that's it. Second page.
Thank you. Right. The first item on the agenda, item 4, is an application by Booth Asset Management Limited at Campions Wood Quarry, Wolverhampton Road, Cheslyn, Hay. Thank you. Matt.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, members. So this report relates to a planning application submitted by Booth Asset Management Limited, seeking permission for a revised restoration scheme to achieve long-term stability of slopes involving the importation of inert materials at a site, Campions Wood Quarry, which is in Cheslyn, Hay. The application is reported to this committee on the grounds that more than 4 objections have been received in relation to the proposals. So the location plan shows the application site, edge red there. It's 17 hectares within the confines of the quarry and is situated to the southwest of Cheslyn Hay village. Access to the quarry is via the Wolverhampton Road, which is that road there, and provides access to the A462, and to the west would be junction 11 of the M6 motorway. The quarry is adjacent to housing in the northeast there, and then, as you can see, there's residential properties along Wolverhampton Road. This is a photograph, an aerial photograph taken by a drone, and shows the extent of the slope buttresses that have already been formed in the quarry, and that's that there area there. I previously showed on the slide the housing to the northeast. You can just about make that under the black sky, as it were. And then here's the access into the quarry, with the boundaries here. This piece of land here is actually allocated in the South Staffordshire local plan for housing. And the site is generally all in the green belt. So the proposals, key aspects of the proposals, it involves a revised restoration landform, avoiding formation of a deep lake within the base of the quarry, with provision for biodiversity gains through a wider range of habitat creation. There's also continuation of existing slope stabilisation work, so the slopes that I previously showed, they would be extended around the remaining boundary of the quarry. Backfilling to create those slopes and to create this restored landform would continue over a period of no more than 6 years, involving the importation of 400,000 cubic metres of inert materials. Final restoration is to be achieved within 8 years, enabling an earlier restoration than would otherwise potentially be achieved under the existing permission for quarrying. So it's important to note that the site has a permission, an old permission that has been subject to review for clay extraction, and that permission allows for them to carry on clay extraction up to 2042. So essentially this proposal is bringing in a shorter timescale for the completion of development and restoration. Going back to the backfill, the rate of import will fluctuate, but up to a maximum of 150,000 tonnes per annum. Restoration, as I say, would be completed within 8 years of permission, but within 2 years of the cessation of imports. And as I mentioned, the site has permission for clay extraction. That would continue for a certain while, but at a lesser rate, and would be done so as not to hinder or prejudice the restoration work that will be achieved through the backfill. So just to give you an impression of what I've just said, this is the approved landform if they weren't allowed to backfill. It involves the creation of a large lake there, which would be quite a deep lake as well, up to 15 metres. So that's what they would be required to do. Having said that, you will see from the report we've already allowed for some importation to be carried out on the basis that they've had to carry out these slope stabilisation works here because of slippages along the quarry faces. And this slide shows the restoration landform that would result from the proposals. So essentially, you've got slopes probably at the same angle, but less in terms of the height of the slopes, because the void of the quarry will be raised up to a certain level. And the extent of the water features is obviously clearly, as shown by the blue areas here, is less than would otherwise be achieved. And that's a aerial view of an impression of what the restoration would ultimately look like, which is included in as figure 2 in the report. So it shows the new and retained water bodies, the retention of existing woodland within the quarry, new woodland and scrub planting, the creation of grassland, and marginal planting of aquatic species around the water bodies, essentially creating habitat for net gains in terms of biodiversity. In terms of the consultation on this application, there have been no objections raised by any of the consultees, although we do refer to the fact that South Staffordshire District Council reported that a local councillor had raised concerns about problems with mud on the road, which I'll come on to later. 5 written representations have been received that object to the proposals on the grounds as summarised in the report, paragraph 37, but with the main cause of concern relating to the impact of traffic or the continued impact of traffic on Wolverhampton Road. So the key issues there, I list the headings in the, from the report there. Firstly, dealing with the principle of development and its justification. Since 2021, as I've mentioned, 2 planning permissions for the import of inert materials to carry out engineering works associated with stabilisation of slopes within the quarry have already been granted. The applicant's proposals for the restoration of the quarry involve the continued importation of inert materials to make remaining unstable slopes safe and to create a landform that will generate net gains for biodiversity. Your officers have been advised by an independent consultant that remediation works on the remaining slopes that have not been treated are necessary, and that the proposals are anticipated to improve land stability within the quarry. It's reasonable to conclude that the proposals can be justified. The proposed restoration landform in reducing the extent of the lake feature is appropriate and would result in benefits in terms of the biodiversity gains. In this case, the proposal would also result in an earlier restoration of the quarry. In terms of other matters raised in representations, a principal concern, as I say, relates to the traffic implications of the proposal as raised by residents and users of Wolverhampton Road. This concern is based on problems associated with the previous use of Wolverhampton Road by quarry traffic, particularly in terms of road fouling with mud and dust. As indicated in the report, the applicant has improved site conditions to keep vehicles clean and employs road sweepers to attend to mud on the road. No objections are raised by the highway authorities, that's our own local, the County Council is a local highway authority, and national highways, subject to the recommended conditions. A planning obligation is also recommended, which will have to be achieved through a legal agreement, a Section 106 agreement. And that's recommended so that the operator surveys the public highway immediately outside the quarry's entrance, so that recent repairs to the public footpath and road are maintained and a reasonable contribution to further repairs is secured if required. In terms of noise and dust, previously there have been complaints connected with operations within the quarry. Our planning regulation team informs, however, that since the summer of 2022, there have been no complaints received relating to dust emissions from operations within the quarry. It's considered that the proposals can be managed such that they would not give rise to any unacceptable adverse impacts on local amenity. The final section of the observations in the report considers those matters that need to be addressed by undertakings within a Section 106 agreement rather than by planning condition. Undertakings are proposed to require the operator to carry out an additional 25 years aftercare, so that's 30 years aftercare in total, to secure the proposed biodiversity benefits, to secure a contribution towards the repair of the public highway, as I've just explained, and to not further implement the permission for clay extraction upon cessation of the import of black backfill materials, and to restore the quarry and manage the land in accordance with the requirements of the permission or the new permission that would be granted if approved today for the revised restoration of the quarry. I just added this slide just to show that here we've got damage to the public highway and the footway. This was very much in the mind of people when they were making their representations on the quarry. The drain within that hole had burst, and needed repair. There was traffic lights on the road, and as you can see from the photograph on the right-hand side, that has been repaired. So there's a concrete footway there for the pedestrians, and the road has been made good as well. So in conclusion, the recommendation is to permit, subject to the applicant first completing a section 106 as highlighted, to secure the terms listed in the report, and to the imposition of conditions as also outlined in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Matt. We've got one speaker on this item, but before we go to that, could you just reinforce the comments that we had at the pre-meeting regarding maintaining the stability of the houses that are on the edge of the quarry? Because I think that's important to residents.
Yes, this site has had an issue over the last 5 years in terms of the fact that the mineral history to this site is complicated, in the sense that this area to the southeast of the site has been previously subject to open cast mining, and there is a geological fault that trends this way. And without getting into the geotechnical details of this, essentially there was slippage on the clay face. And so as a matter of urgency in some ways, the applicant took action to create, in accordance with a proper design, to install a stability buttress, which involved the import of clean, dry materials rather than using materials within the site. And that has proved effective, and that's been reviewed by independent consultants that we've asked to help and give us advice. And essentially, the stability buttress that you saw on that photograph has been sort of constructed in two parts. And then after completing that, the applicant took opportunity to review the stability of slopes all around the site and has come up with this proposal. I mean, essentially, the buttresses that are already in place are there to safeguard the properties that are there. But as I mentioned previously, this land here is allocated in the local plan for housing. So essentially, the continuation of buttresses would be a benefit, of course, in terms of ensuring that there's no long-term risk of further instability. And then, of course, we've got the public highway there, Wolverhampton Road, as it continues into Cheslyn Hay Village. And again, there'll be a buttress that's engineered to sort of safeguard any slippages on that area. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Matt. We've got one speaker, Mr. Mark Smedley, who's a supporter of the application. Have we got him on Teams? Morning, Mr. Smedley. Can you hear us?
Hello. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Fine. Thanks very much. You've got 5 minutes.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I will keep it relatively brief because I think Matthew Griffin has covered a lot of the details, and the officer's report also has a lot of details as well. I think I'll start just by sort of explaining that the situation at the site is essentially an emergency, and that's why you've had these various applications for different buttresses. With a stability situation like this, particularly in a Etruria marl, that's the type of rock you've got there. It is famously quite unstable, and essentially the instability issues at the site over time would eventually what's known as unravel, and that would take it outside the site's boundaries, which is obviously something that we want to avoid. So, as Mr. Griffin explained, the sort of all-around site survey of stability has demonstrated that this is basically the way to resolve all stability issues at the site in the long term. So I think in solving the stability issues at the site, we're essentially in a bit of a win-win situation, because what we're delivering is a better restoration scheme than the existing one in terms of biodiversity net gain in terms of landscape improvements, avoiding a deep pool. The application secures the improvements to the wheel wash, to the entrance areas, the new surfacing inside. It delivers better surface water management, but most importantly, it significantly brings the end date forward for the site and gets this site restored much earlier than otherwise may have been the case. And that obviously, if there are any amenity concerns for residents, that delivers a resolution essentially to them much earlier than may have otherwise been the case. And the only other thing I wanted to mention in terms of amenity is that I've been told by the applicant that during the operations, should they be approved, they have every intention to continue liaison meetings with residents. And I understand that they are planning one for next month. So I think that's all I need to say on it. So like I said, I've kept it brief, but yes, thank you very much for your time. And yes, I'll go back to you. Thank you.
Can we now move on to any member comments then? Yeah, Caroline.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the presentation. I always think when you get something in like this where it's revised and better, why wasn't it in to start with? Do we look at things to the extent of what could be best instead of what's the minimum we'll accept? Because, yeah, I agree with you, this is a better scheme and needs to be in place, but then why wasn't it to start with?
Yep. Yeah, good question. I think the context of this is that the actual permission stems back to a permission that was granted way back in the 1950s. There were no houses to the north, so and people who live there will know that the fullest extent of that quarry wasn't apparent perhaps up until the 1990s. And then, obviously, the quarry, somebody went in and excavated. And then we've ended up with a situation that, in modern terms, we wouldn't accept anyway, but it is what it is.
Yeah, that makes more sense. So, and anyway, your quarry was there before those houses. They always say that about my trees.
Councillor McMahon.
Thank you. I'm thinking of a worst case scenario and a tragedy. We see in Chasewater regularly, unfortunately, people dying because kids throw themselves in the water on a hot day and that's it. What's the risk in terms of that sort of thing happening between the two different proposals, the current one and the proposed one? And what mitigations are going to be in place to prevent, in both cases, to prevent that sort of thing from happening?
Yeah, that's again, a point that's been raised by the applicant in support of their proposals, in the sense of if they don't do what they want to, in terms of what's proposed, then clearly we end up with what is a much greater water body at a greater depth, whereas what is proposed in terms of the water features in this scenario would be much shallower lakes, and also obviously smaller in extent. I suppose the question you might ask is what's the position as regards public access, and that's something possibly that may need to sort of be talked about in the liaison with the local community, because there is no public access. It's private land. It will be managed as private land, and of course that's something that we will have to engage as we, if we sort of allow this development to take place, that there will be a discussion for the local community with the owners of the site as to what the future might be in terms of its longer term management. But clearly we're sort of recommending something that involves the landowner to be responsible with a management programme of 30 years. So there's plenty of time for discussion on those points, but I'm sure safety will be an issue.
Can I come back, Chair? Can we as a committee, irrespective of the decision we make today, request that mitigations against a tragedy are considered fully in whatever we take forward. Because wherever there's water, there's a problem. Thank you.
Yeah, I think just to sort of add to that is that we would also refer to, I know that the Mineral Products Association has a lot of guidance and, you know, it's an issue for quarries across the nation, as you understand, and that it's something that clearly we'll refer to in the further discussions if the decision's made.
Thank you, Chair. Good report, Matt. Thank you very much. Caroline said something I was going to say about the houses coming after the quarry, 1956. But if I look at this, I use that road quite often, going to Essington and stuff, and there is the dirt on it, but it is also cleaned on a regular basis. Like, you can go one way and there's dirt on it, you come back and it's been cleaned, so we know the quarry are working hard to engage with everybody else. There's a 30-year plan for mitigation to go through it all. There's 5 years and the 25 years. So if nobody else will, I'll propose that we go with officer's recommendation on this one.
Before we go to that, I've got Councillor Cox.
Sorry.
Thanks, Chairman. I'm happy to second that movement, but it was just a follow-up from Councillor McMahon. So we learnt the depth of the existing of 15 metres, if I'm right, if I heard right. So in terms of the new scheme, the references said shallower, but what do we have a depth? Because in terms of certainly the larger pool, I would imagine, maybe.
Sort of look at one of the drawings. I mean, I don't know if Mark's maybe. I would guess at sort of 1 or 2 metres, because clearly the point of the ponds is for biodiversity benefit, and there won't be any point to them being there other than for that. So and also it's part again, another part of it is the fact that when you change landform, you've got to ensure that it drains properly and doesn't cause problems for people further downstream of the site or at a lower level. And that's been part of it as well, that essentially you've got to have some drainage and water body there to hold waters, so that waters from the site can be discharged at a rate that further downstream can accept in terms of capacity. Yeah.
Councillor Trowbridge, you wanted to come back? Well, the recommendation has been proposed and seconded that the proposed development for a revised viable restoration scheme to achieve long-term stability of slopes involving the importation of inert materials subject to the applicant and all other persons with a relevant interest in the land for the purpose of Section 106 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990, signing the Section 106 legal agreement, the heads of terms to include those listed below and conditions including those listed below. It's been proposed and seconded. Are we all in agreement? That's unanimous. Thank you. Fine. Let's move to the next item, which, according to my wonderful secondary computer, has now disappeared. It's on the back, yeah. Thank you. The next application is by Holcim UK Limited at Uttoxeter Quarry, Spath, Uttoxeter. Matt, we're with you, I think.
Thank you again. This report relates to an update on a previous decision made by this committee in relation to a planning application submitted by Holcim UK Limited, which were formerly known as Aggregate Industries UK Limited as of last Sunday. So it's red hot news, that one. But they were seeking permission for a northern extension to the quarry at Uttoxeter. So the site location, Uttoxeter Quarry, is north of Uttoxeter town, off the Roaster Road, which connects to the A50. The proposed extension area is the area, well, the application area there is shown in the green, and the yellow there is the existing quarry, which now has ceased mineral extraction. It's now in the restoration phase. So on the 4th of August 22, this committee resolved to permit the application for the northern extension to Uttoxeter Quarry, subject to the terms indicated in the officer's report, and we've appended that report, that original report, to our latest update report. Since August 2022, the applicant has sought to secure necessary interests in all the land which would be subject to the planning permission. The circumstances of land interests, however, are such that the applicant only has control of the southern part of the extension area. Therefore, to recommence mineral extraction at the quarry, the applicant now proposes a reduced working scheme and will forgo the opportunity to develop the northern part of that extension area. The consequences of this revised proposal are set out on this slide, in the sense that instead of what was nearly 1 million tonnes of sand and gravel to be extracted, it will be 2/3 of that amount, and the extraction period would be, rather than 3 years, would be 2 years. They've still maintain that they'll need 4 years to clear the site, because essentially clearing the site would be removing the quarry plant and all the infrastructure that goes with it. So to explain this change, what I've tried to do here is show you the what was accepted when we looked at this in August 22 on the left-hand side. So essentially what the issue is that the land in the northern part, this bit here, is no longer or is not achievable in terms of land ownership to Holcim, and so therefore what they propose to do is a reduced scheme. So there'll be a little bit of that northern area taken out there, and essentially the main extraction area will continue to be this southern working area here, and that would provide the 670,000 tonnes of mineral that then gets taken down to the processing plant to the south for processing and then export to market. So, as indicated, we're looking at a 300,000 tonne reduction, and obviously a much reduced extraction area, as shown by the purple areas. And in terms of restoration, the implication is that of not working that area is, rather than having the two larger lakes there and having to rearrange public footpaths that cross the site, you'll be left with just a small pond in that area and with a larger lake here, which will be sort of compatible with the restoration that's going on to the south within the existing quarry. So, in terms of the observations of this report, I've referred to the fact that the revised working scheme, which is a partial implementation of what was approved back in August, provides a means by which 2/3 of the resource within the application site could be recovered. Based on the terms that were previously approved by this committee, if the reduced working scheme is acceptable, it's recommended that an additional condition is imposed to require that the northern part of that extension area outside the applicant's control is not developed, so that this restriction is agreed with the applicant, and he accepts that it's necessary, because what we don't want to see is that northern part being sort of separately extracted without the provisions of what we previously agreed. And principal to that is the fact that we wanted extended aftercare to secure the biodiversity benefits of the restoration that would be achieved. So, sorry, the recommendation is to permit or maintain the approval for the northern extension, but on the reduced scheme, and with amendments in bold to the conditions that this have been highlighted in the report to cover the issues that I've explained. And then clearly the 106 will be agreed with the landowners that are relevant to the reduced scheme rather than within the whole application area. So hopefully that makes sense, but that's all I have to say for the time being. Thank you.
Mention, I think, Councillor McMahon's comments on the previous application. I think you'd probably want to reiterate those on this one as well.
Thank you. I think that just thinking about it, it ought to be something that is raised for each and every application that involves filling quarries with water in any shape or form. You know, it may be 40, 50 years down the line when we're long gone, but that's beside the point. We have to do our best to mitigate tragedy. The previous one I felt was more pertinent in the sense that all these houses are so close. And whether it's supposed to be private property or not, you know what kids are like. They'll jump over the fence and go and, you know, and then we've got a problem on our hands. But notwithstanding that, I think it's something that should be looked at in every case. Thank you.
Councillor Sutherland.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Matt. For me, is there a risk that someone else, another business, could come back at a later date and try to, if you like, initiate extraction on that northern flank?
Well, that's the reason for the additional condition, to say that no development should be allowed. And that's it. And then if somebody did, say if it was aggregate industries and they came back, oh sorry, Holcim, and they came back and said, no, you know, we can talk to the landowner and we're agreeing terms now. I mean, clearly we would have to sort of consider that in the context of a new application. So it would come back to us, and I think the important thing is that we have that control on that development, so that, you know, we want to see it done properly and with effective restoration and aftercare.
Councillor Hudson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think local people will be very pleased with what we've heard today, because I think a lot of the objections before was about the amount of lorries coming out onto the B5030, and we had to make sure that there was a condition that they went north and didn't come through Uttoxeter, or you know, they had to go right in a right roundabout way to get to the A52, I think. So yeah, I think it's good. I'll support this. As I say, we hope that if there is future developments, we don't really want them, but that's way into Uttoxeter rural, not Uttoxeter urban. But yeah, we'll see whatever that committee may decide in the future, should that arise. Thank you.
Councillor Trowbridge.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I have just one very brief question. Why is this at committee? You know, it's a no-brainer. I don't know why it's here.
Yeah, well, the applicant was asking me that question, but I took the view that it was a committee decision, and that you know, it was your the committee's decision to for that resolution, and it did require all landowners to be signed up. Clearly, that's not going to be the case, but it's important that you're aware of it before we go off and then agree terms. Yeah.
Then thank you for bringing it.
Yeah, Chair, can I propose that we accept this recommendations and go ahead with the application?
Councillor Trowbridge. Recommendations been proposed and seconded to permit the proposed development for the northern extension to Uttoxeter Quarry for the winning and working of sand and gravel, with the restoration to agriculture, water-based recreation and nature conservation, with the continued use of existing access site offices, processing plant, silt lagoons and ancillary infrastructure, subject to A, the applicant first completing the Section 106 legal agreement to allow the 2016 planning permission to be issued, B, the applicant and all other persons with a relevant interest in the land for the purpose of Section 106 of the Town and Country Planning Act signed a Section 106 agreement and heads of agreement to include those listed below. It's been proposed and seconded. Do we all agree? Thank you very much. Before we go off this application, oh, that's approved, by the way. Before we go off this, have you got any comment to make about the land which has been reclaimed so far and the work that's going on? You know, I'm sort of passionate, and I think members of the committee are quite enthusiastic about seeing the reclamation of quarries and their further usage.
Yeah, as Councillor Hudson will know, there's a large lake that's been formed, and essentially we're at the point where, at the last liaison committee, the Holcim are about to submit the detail of that restoration scheme. So we'll have some detail to consider, and clearly the town council, the parish council, the rural parish council have been interested in this issue. So we'll let people know about that. But essentially, we're now the land has been formed as it should be, but we'll be looking at the detail as to the planting and the seeding and all the rest of it. But you know what happens. I think there's quite a local debate on the future of this site, you know, and what benefits it can bring to the local community.
Yeah, Councillor Hudson.
Yeah, there's another part of the quarry that there's going to be a sports hub, which is currently the Staffordshire FA are now looking into. So the ESBC have given some 106 money towards it, and then the Staffordshire FA are going to progress this to playing for football playing fields and facilities for changing, and it's going to be quite a big project. So that's already happening.
Thank you very much. It's nice to see that some of the work this committee does actually leads to progress and to things happening that are to the benefit of the community. Can I then, just as this is the last planning committee of the present council, thank you all for your attendance and for your contribution over the last 4 years. I think one thing that we can be absolutely confident about is that we've given very intensive consideration to every application that's come before this committee. And so I thank you all very much for that. And particularly I thank our officers, Julie, who's brought us through all sorts of problems and difficulties, and the team that's worked together. Thank you very much for that. And would you pass on the thanks of this committee to the team? Matt, you've always managed to explain deep holes in the area with considerable understanding, so that we knew what was happening. John, can I also thank you for your legal advice and things that you've done, and Joe for keeping us all in order. So thank you all very much indeed. I've enjoyed very much my time on the Planning Committee. I hope that you have, and wish you all the very best for the future. Those that are seeking re-election, I hope you'll continue the work on this committee. Those that aren't seeking re-election, I wish you all the very best, and hope that you enjoy your retirement. Thank you very much indeed. Meeting closed.
David, can I thank you as well for the work you've done over the 8 years on this committee as Deputy Chairman.
Thank you. Meeting closed, I think, at near enough 10:46, I think. Thank you all very much indeed.